Well, hello. My name is Samantha Hawkins, aka the Gypsy Dispatcher and creator of the Gold Line Truths blog series for Exacom's Online Learning Center. And today we've got a goodie. This is episode one of a brand new monthly series as part of the Gold Line Truth series called Speak Your Truth. So, first of all, I just want to kick off and explain what we've got going on. This is a series that Exacom is completely behind as a sponsor and as a big believer in training and motivation and encouragement and empowerment for the people behind the headset, those who believe in those behind the headset, those who empower and make decisions and lead those behind the headset. And this series, Speak Your Truth, is all going to be podcast style conversations where I get to talk to some of my closest friends in the industry, subject matter experts in the industry, where we answer the question of what's on your heart today. The opportunity to speak your truth about things that are meaningful to those in this industry, telecommunicators, supervisors, managers, decision makers. We talk about the things that matter to you in this world, in one of the greatest professions that we are proudly glad to call our own and to be a part of. And every single one of these episodes, I guarantee you, has people at the heart of it. People driven, all about those who support and keep this industry running. And I am joined today for episode one by one of my closest friends in the industry, 911 telecommunicator, instructor, public speaker, and quality assurance administrator, Juliet Brown, out of Massachusetts. And I'm so glad to get into it. But before we do that, a quick word from sponsor of this series, Exacom. One moment. All right. And we are back. Again, I am with Juliet Brown, Quality Assurance Administrator and 911 public speaker. And I gotta say, first of all, thank you so much, Juliet, for joining me for this inaugural edition of Speak Your Truth. So glad to have you on, girl.
Yeah, Sam, it's so great to be here. I'm honored to be your first person that you're interviewing.
And like I said, this is a good one because quality assurance is something that I know is big on Juliet's heart and something that she wants to speak her truth about and something that's big on my heart too. Now, both of us are Qs. She's been definitely uh, managing a entire QA division, something that I've never done in my life. And when you talk about someone who is passionate about seeing how training and quality assurance works together, how quality assurance and quality improvement goes hand in hand, well, Juliet, I know you are someone who can speak about this all day long. We don't have all day long to do this, but in this episode of Speak Your Truth, we do want to kind of speak on that. So, first of all, let me ask you, what drew you into QA and what keeps you doing it? It's hard work, it's meaningful work, it's valuable work. But what drew you into it and what keeps you doing it?
So, ironically, I know you talked about training and QA and how they work together, and
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly how I got into quality assurance. I've always been a really passionate trainer, and I love when you have a new hire or you're teaching a new skill or something, and they have that aha moment and it clicks and they get it. Like, I thrive for those moments. And it's like, yes, this is working. You know, they're going to be a good dispatcher, like, you know, bless them and send them on their way type thing. There's nothing I love more than that. Which is how I got into quality assurance, because quality assurance is, in essence, continuing education. When you have a good quality assurance program and you are giving your employees feedback consistently, that is how people, in a sense, like, don't get those little errors that become habits of errors.
Oh, wow. That's
Because if you're
true.
constantly able to, you know, check them the first time they forget that person's last name when they're getting calling party information, then it never builds as a habit and they stay at that same level of knowledge that they took just out of training.
That is so I love that. And that really is what quality improvement is all about. It's like you said, it's continual. So it's as you go through it, it's keeping people, again, not about catching them doing it wrong, but as we find opportunities to better ourselves, to better our people, making those corrections. And you hit on a key word there when you said feedback. And I know that's one of those things when we talk about communication, how often feedback gets left out of the loop, because you've got to have that follow up. All the gauging, all the data, all the measuring, but how are you taking that data and following up with your people? So let me ask you, what does constructive quality feedback looks like from the perspective of someone in QA? What does that look like in a way that is effective for your people?
Well, first, as you were talking, I just thought of something in regards to feedback that I'd like to touch on. Um, if you don't give them the quality assurance feedback and you're just grading them and keeping it in a file, it's kind of like if you were in school and you took a test and your teacher never told you what the grade was. You took a
I
test,
love
you
that
never
comparison.
find out the grade, you never know like if 1 plus 1 should equal 2, and you just keep building off of that and off of 1 plus 1 is 2. But if that's
Mm,
not the case, then you build all these other issues off that one base error.
that's true.
um yes. So good constructive feedback, I always tell my evaluators if they're stuck on how to give feedback, you want it to be future forward thinking.
Mm,
So next time you take a call like this, do this instead or say this instead. It seems more, it comes out more positive in that tone than saying you did this, this, and this wrong. You're still telling them that they did it wrong, but you're kind of curbing it in a more positive, impactful way.
I love
Um,
that.
and then when they're really stuck on what to put in that future forward thinking, I
Hmm.
tell them to pretend like they're talking to a trainee. And what would they say to the trainee if the trainee took that call, which includes what they did right, because we want to build our trainees' confidence all the time, right?
So you mean we're not just hitting on the negative, right? Like you said, we've got to touch on where the correction has to be made, but you're never going to mention what you did right. I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
And
good.
it's really helping the cues that, um, sometimes you don't know what to say when somebody's getting hundreds all the time. But if you can find, they did everything by the book, but on this call, it was an elderly caller and they slowed down their rate of speech when the female wasn't comprehending what you were saying.
Mm.
Stuff like that is stuff that you put in the comments, like, great jobs noticing and slowing down your rate of speech for this caller. Or
Wow.
sometimes I'll just say, thank you for being kind to this caller. I noticed you were kind when you said XYZ, or when you identified with their feelings,
Mm.
or something along those lines, to really give that, um, can't think of the word I'm looking for, reinforcement
Mm.
of their good behaviors as well.
I think that's something that we can't overlook. And like you mentioned, so it's easy if you have a partially compliant or a non-compliant call, and we can run down a list of everything you did wrong and everything. But even when you have a telecommunicator who does it right, how do you still provide some sort of feedback? I love that, to reinforce you did this right. We see you, we see what you did, and now to reinforce for them that on the next call to do that same thing again. I think that's so important. But also, you kind of touched on language. How impactful is it to keep your language positive? How important is it to bear in mind when you are crafting that feedback, or and not just the written feedback, but if you're having a meeting, as a QA evaluator or in-house QA at your center, and you're having that in-person meeting with your people, how important is language and being mindful of the words you use, that you're building up and not tearing down, even when giving constructive criticism?
Language is very important. How you word things is crucial in the sense that if you are being demeaning or you are um, not being kind in how you're
Mm,
giving your feedback, you're going to have that person shut down.
wow.
And when someone shuts down, they're not taking any of the feedback you're giving seriously, or they're not thinking of it, or they're so anxious that they can't comprehend it.
Mm,
And then once you have that negative relationship with the person, they're going to dread every single feedback that they get from you. It's kind of like you have to build that positive, good relationship with them. And then once you have that, it's a lot easier to be like, hey, man, what, like when you're in a meeting, like, hey, man, what, you forgot their name. And they
mm.
can be like, I know, I'm sorry, like XYZ happened, and explain. But if you're sitting down with them and you have a bad relationship and you're like, you forgot their name again, it it hits different and they're
It's
going to
true.
react different. So you really need to have that positive relationship with them outside of giving feedback as well.
That is really good. And to me, hearing that, it's just putting the human back in quality assurance. We
Mhm.
understand that the process behind it. I'm not someone who manages an entire division as you do, or and of QA evaluators, and I get that there's some complexities to the QA process, but the human part of it is, you want your people to kind of be clued in to what it is. I feel like sometimes all the complexity and all the complication of what QA is, we forget that you want your people to understand, like, this is not the principal's office, and it's not just data and numbers. Like, this is a very human thing of what we're catching, why we need to catch it, why we're evaluating what we're evaluating, why we're looking for what we're looking for. So let me ask you, for someone who may have in-house quality insurance at their center, or maybe they don't have quality insurance, and they're thinking, like, how do I explain this to my people? Give it to me in a nutshell, why quality assurance is important to your telecommunicator. What is it that you're looking for? Why should we have it? Why is it a need? Why does every single center needs to be have this process in place? Why is it important?
Well, I think with everything that runs smoothly in life, there is a good series of checks and balances that kind of keeps it in check. And with quality assurance, especially as a dispatcher, everything we say and do is recorded,
Mm,
which is really good, but can also be really bad if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And if you're not getting that continuous feedback and figuring out how you can improve, those little issues that I talked about earlier that build up can build into bigger mistakes, can build into bigger problems. that's also all recorded. So that
True.
leaves, so um, if you're not getting that feedback and not figuring out how you are messing up or the things that you're doing wrong, you ultimately don't know where you stand in your job,
Mm,
which is not great because even when you find out that you're not in good standing with a job or something, like at least you know.
it's true.
You could be thinking you're doing everything right but doing everything wrong, and
Mm,
then say you're thinking you're doing everything right but you're doing everything wrong, and something bad happens. Someone dies or one of your responders gets injured.
yes.
When all of that information gets pulled and all of your recordings get pulled and everything happens, they're going to be like, wow, you really messed this up. And that could cause you to, you know, lose your job. Could cause you to be sued um, by the people that were injured or killed, the family of the person that was killed. It can put your center in a lot of trouble. Um, so legally and liability wise, it's very important. But it's
It's true.
also important to just know where you stand, and it gives that level of um I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. No, but it gives that level of understanding, and also can help build mutual respect between the telecommunicator and administration if done correctly.
It's true. So, what I'm hearing is that quality assurance, as much as it is sort of a service for your citizens, because you're ensuring that your telecommunicators are equipped to do it right and to know what they're doing, but it's a service to your telecommunicators, to your center, to your
Mhm.
headset heroes, because they can't do better if they don't know better. And this process allows them to know, hey, what you're doing right, keep doing it right. What you uh, may need to improve on, here's how to improve on it. And that is the training part of it. So we touched on this already, but again, just kind of full circle coming back to it. Training and quality assurance goes hand in hand. If you have a training division at your center, or maybe you don't, but you have trainers, you have some sort of training process, they need to work together. And talking about how it looks like what does it look like to take the data, to take the numbers from QA? That's training aids, right? That's in services, right? That's even, I imagine, seeking classes even outside of your center, or seeking subject matter experts to talk to the people at your center, right? Um, on those trends that you see. Let me ask you, what are some trends, maybe on the negative side, that you sometimes notice when it comes to quality assurance?
Um, well, I think consistently, you'll see trends of people not getting complete calling party information. So they just get their first name and their phone number, or just their phone number and no name.
Mm,
If the person on the other end of the phone refuses to give it to you, that's one thing, but we still need to ask.
it's true.
Another thing that will be a trend is people will start to not get complete descriptions.
Ah,
So if they're not getting a complete description of a suspect and they're only getting like pink sweater instead of white female with brown hair, a black scarf, and a pink sweater.
wow, it's true.
And pink sweater is not checked, and nobody says, like, hey, you need more than that. You've just created a new standard and a new acceptable standard of just getting one piece of clothing information as being an okay description.
Wow.
And once you've
Wow.
set that standard and the dispatchers, whether they do it consciously or unconsciously, see that pink sweater is okay,
Mm.
it slowly starts to become a less and less thing of pink sweater. Or sometimes people will think of an instruction that sounds really good, so they say it, and then other dispatchers hear it and they're like, I agree, that sounds really good. So they start saying it, but it's not actually something that should be said.
Mm.
I haven't seen this exact example, but what comes to mind is if somebody's hyperventilating, telling them to breathe into a paper bag.
Ah,
We're
never.
taught in training not to do that. But
Yes.
if somebody with 15 years dispatching experience who hasn't been to a training in 15 years
Mm-hmm.
says it, and somebody with 6 months says, oh, that sounds good, and they add it in, now all of a sudden you have half of your dispatch center telling people to breathe into paper bags when they're hyperventilating.
Oh, wow.
And it's like,
Wow.
where did that instruction come from? Like, who came up with that? That's not a thing. But if you're not doing quality assurance and giving feedback and kind of checking that, then you won't know that that instruction's happening until somebody passes out and has a negative effect of breathing into a brown paper bag.
That is so true. And there goes opportunities for individual feedback, one-on-one. Obviously, you're going to need to have that one-on-one feedback with those telecommunicators that are doing it, but also opportunities to do that in service and say, hey, let's put it out there to make sure, as you said, for anyone who might have heard that, anything we endorse, we allow to happen, is going to continue to happen. And quality assurance, that process is a great way to catch what is happening and to correct it right then and there. As we wrap this up for Speaker Truth, what is your last statement, your send off to our training professionals, to our quality assurance professionals in 911, for those interested in having that healthy, effective partnership between training and QA in their center? What is your final statement?
Um, I'm sure you won't be surprised by this, Samantha, but my last final send off would be not to forget to stay human and find kindness in things. And I think a lot of times people confuse kindness with telling the truth.
Mm,
They think that by not telling someone something, they're being kind.
wow.
When in reality, if you're telling someone something in a non aggressive, demeaning way, whether they want to hear it or not, you're being kind to them because you're stopping it from happening in the future and making that same mistake in the future.
Love it. Stay kind,
Yeah.
stay human, keep it honest. That sums it all up. Thank you, Juliet, for joining us for episode 1 of Speak Your Truth. Thank you all for tuning in and joining us, and catch future episodes of Speak Your Truth series. Again, as this is going to be a continuing monthly series as part of Exacom's online learning center in the Gold Line Truth series. If you've not already subscribed to the Gold Line Truths blog, make sure you do at Exacom's website. Thank you, Juliet. Thank you,
Thank you.
Exacom, for putting this content out there and putting your money where your mouth is behind your beliefs in the people that make this industry great. Thank you. Y'all take
Thank
care.